my book friends, welcome to the first book wrap up of the year. I'm here to share with you all the books I read in January and tell you how I rated them and what my thoughts were and how I feel about them. Stick around. So this is the stack of books that I read. There's only one book missing from this stack that I gave to the rightful owner, but I'll tell you all about it. The first book that I read, I don't have it with me physically because it was a book for my little sister, but I figured before I give it to her, let me read it and figure it out. So this is the book Mommy, My Body's Changing by Dr. Mpume Zenda. So I saw this book when I went to one of the secondhand bookstores and I was like, oh, actually this is an interesting read and let me give it to my sister. My sister is a teenager, just entered her teens, and I figured, it sounds like a good book for her to just get to know her body and all the changes that she's going to go through. But selfishly, I read the book because I figured I do recall the stuff that I was taught during life orientation and life skills when I was in primary school and high school, but I don't think I really retained all that knowledge about learning my body, like my physical anatomy and learning my body. So I know my body, it is mine, I'm here, but I don't think I know like the intrinsic details about some of the emotions that I go through or some of the things that I go through. Even though, yes, I did do life sciences, I sometimes get called out by my partner that I seem to not be intrigued by my body, and I'm like, yeah, it is just there. So this book was quite interesting because I got to learn a few things about teenagers and the kind of emotions and thoughts that they go through, and how parents and adults or people who are meant to be their safe space need to like kind of relate to them and understand them and process some of the things that they're going through. So it was good for me, for myself, but also to help me a bit with relating to my sister and being a bit kinder, because you know what, apparently teenagers are emotionally more developed than they are their frontal lobe, which means that their reasoning capacity is mostly emotional than it is logical, and it kind of does make sense. But yeah, that's the first book I read, and I rated it 4 stars. I think it's a good book for parents and teenagers. I think if you have a teenage, it's mainly for girls, but if you have a teenager, I think it's still a good book for you to read along with them. It has some good exercises and some good questions that you can do with your teenage daughter or son if they're able to bypass the pronouns of she, her, and all of that. So that's the first book. So the second book I read is this one, Things My Mother Left Me. This title, when I saw the title of this book, I was like, yes, 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 because what is this title? Things My Mother Left Me. You can't tell me that this is not a catchy title. You can't tell me that when you read this you don't want to know what happened. So this book is actually a collection of stories. When I initially read it, I didn't fully know that, and I was reading the book and I was finding a bit of disconnects here and there, and I was like, what's going on? And then I came back and I read the synopsis at the back and I was like, oh, it's a collection of stories, but it does read like a continuation, right? So it basically follows different women, and they are all interconnected, even though they're standalone stories, but the different women are connected to each other. We almost follow them through different timelines or different times in their lives, and we get to understand some of the events that occurred. But this book was the kind of book where it hooked me. It hooked me, and I read the first chapter, I read the first few pages. I was like, yes, 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 because the writing style, Pulane, it writes so well. I love her writing style. However, it did lose me in some parts where I felt like, okay, I don't know if we're dragging, also because perhaps I was reading it more as a continuation, but I felt like, I don't know where we're going now, but the writing is so good. So I need Pulane to write more, because I think, not even I think, now that I have read this book, she is a good writer, and I just needed to write a bit more so we can narrow down on a genre and punch a bit. She writes so well. The way she describes things, the way she writes. I mean, one of the things that I read that like hooked me, let me find it. Okay, I remember this one, Kinale Modisa. Let me find the other one. Let's see. I want to find a different one. I might go with that one. Okay, let's go with this one. My entire body collapses in the palms of her hands. Somewhere beyond the window, Women sing about lying down in green pastures and being laid beside still waters. Tandega joins their prayer, rocking me back and forth. Kinali Modisa. Come on. She writes so well. And this book has this, I don't know what this concept is called, but it's such an interesting concept where they put pictures in between the stories, like random pictures. They are a bit of graphic in terms of like nudity, but these are the kind of pictures, and they across the book. So you see these pictures across the book, different kinds of them. Let me see if I can find another one that is a bit not too risque to show. Yes, like this one. So yeah, it is an interesting book. I rated this book 3.5, if not 3 stars, because I think it is catchy, it hooks you, it holds you. I would reread it with a mind now understanding that it is short stories and not trying to connect the dots too much or trying to make sense of the timelines and all of that, even though it does in a sense make some sense. The third book is The Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives. I read this as part of the book club, the Khosi Readers Book Club. This was a reread for me. I read it 3 years ago now, and I love this book. I don't know what to tell you, but I love this book. What I love about this book is that Lola was able to take us through so many characters, take us through, give us background, make us understand their thinking process, all within these many pages. I don't know what I have to tell you, but that means to me, that tells me how amazing of a writer she is, because not only have I read the book and I love it and I know that, but the fact that she was able to package a storyline that takes you through so many emotions. It has characters, you understand the characters, you go through the journey with everybody, and you don't feel like you need more of anything. And it's done all within 200 and less than 300 pages. Love it, love it, love it, love it so much. Basically, in this story, we follow Baba Segi and his wives, and there's a new wife that's been introduced. So there are 3 wives. There's a 4th wife who's been introduced. The 4th wife is a learned wife. She is young, and so she doesn't receive the best reception, but her presence in the home does kind of rock things up in the household. And we go through this book basically learning revelations about the household and Baba Segi's wives. Love this book. Initially, I think I had given it like a 4.5 or something, but the way I love it and I could reread it too many times, I think it deserves 5 stars, so 5 stars it is. The next book I read is Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. I am on a mission to read more of the books on my bookshelf this year, and part of the mission is reading more of the series books that I have, and this is part of the Black Girls Must Die Exhausted series. This is the book that I related with when I started, because we follow pretty much the journey of Tabitha, who is in her 30s, early 30s, and she's educated, she has a good job, but she doesn't have a husband, nor does she have kids. And basically the environment around her is kind of questioning what is her worth if she does not have kids and a husband at this time. And not only is the environment kind of giving her that energy, she also finds herself in a medical predicament where she is diagnosed with something that might impact her likelihood of having children. But this book is basically about the interesting dynamic that comes into play just after you exit, or in your late 20s and in your early 30s, where life is, as a woman, is on a clock. You have a biological clock. You are questioning whether you want to be a procreator. Do you want to have kids? Do you want to get married? And the society around you seems to think that all the accolades, everything that you've gotten, yes, it matters, but it matters more that you gave birth to people and that you are married to somebody else. So it was an interesting book. I did find parts of it quite like a drag, like we didn't need to go that. And I also find it quite flat, and flat not like bottom flat, like a middle high-ish flat. So it doesn't have like a deep plot twist or a climax. It just reads quite like flat, but it touches on interesting concepts, and they're good. And also it reads well, so the author writes really, really well, so it makes it easy to enjoy. I don't know what I expected from the title. I think the title is the real catcher here. I don't want to say it disappointed, but I also don't want to say that it blew my mind, if that makes sense. But this is the kind of book where as a person in the early 30s, it kind of resonated with me. I resonated with Tabitha's story about, what happens when you've ticked all the things that you were supposed to take, being like a young adult, went to varsity, got the good job, did all the right things, and now the missing puzzle pieces seem to be a baby or children and a husband. But do you even want those to be part of your life, I'm gonna read something from here as well. Let's see. And once I turned 30, no matter my accomplishment, educational or professional, there was no chance of escaping the question, so how come you're not married yet? Anyway, that is the book. And then lastly, Lucas Mangope, A Life by Oupa. So prior to picking up this book as part of the South African Political Book Club, where we read non-fiction political books, I did not know about Lucas Mangope. Blame the education system. Side eye to the South African education system, because I didn't know about Lucas Mangope. And now that I've read the book, I'm like, how come I've never heard of this man? Like, where was my history? So Lucas Mangope is an interesting character. Not even character, because this is not fiction, this is real life. But he was basically a president, a leader of the Putsatswana Bantustan during the apartheid era. And there's a lot of complicated opinions and conflicting views about this man and the kind of legacy that he left behind. You hate to love him and you love to hate him kind of situation, where Oupa takes us through his life story and you realize how much of a complex human being he was. But it basically shows you that human beings are complex and we're so layered that we come with the good and the bad. And basically what this book intended to do was to give a balanced account of his life. And I think it did exactly that, because even now that I'm speaking here, I still don't know where I am in terms of how I perceive him. But you can see the good he did, but you can equally see the bad that he did. So he is an interesting character that I'm glad I got to learn about. And Oupa writes so well. The amount of research that went into this book, the detailing of the accounts, the different life stories, the research, stunning, stunning, stunning. I would gladly read any book by Oupa again. I love this one. So this one I rated 4 stars. I could even go 4.5. This one I rated 3.5. And I think 3.5 because I'm still hopeful about the rest of the series, and I just like the book covers also, so, and the title. So that 0.5 is basically from that. These are the books I read, and yeah, I think I had a good reading month. 5 books a month is quite good for me. I really enjoyed the books that I read. I think they gave me the kickstart into the year that I needed. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. So stick around and I will see you on my next video and the next book wrap up. Bye!